At-home euthanasia, what to expect. This is a difficult topic and maybe seems morbid, but the one certainty with pets is that there will be an end of life, and at that end of life, there are usually decisions to be made. And it can be such an emotional time that it's good to think ahead about some of the possibilities, some of the options, and some of the choices that you're going to want to make for your pet. At-home euthanasia may be an option for you depending on your pet's circumstances. So if your pet is obviously suffering or not able to breathe or in any type of severe distress, you'll obviously do what you need to do to euthanize humanely and more quickly. I just want to share with you some of my experiences and things that you might consider ahead of time, things that you might want to ask your vet, and things that might prepare you for the experience. Most of my pets I've chosen to euthanize at home, some I haven't. Again, depends on the circumstances. I know that in some situations I've been so emotional about the idea of euthanasia that it's been actually hard for me to talk to the vet or get the information I need. And sometimes you can email questions, and I've actually had a friend book an appointment back when I just found it so difficult to deal with. I seem to have better coping skills around it now. It doesn't make it less painful. Sometimes when things happen suddenly or a decision has to be made and you don't feel ready for it, it can be just really an emotional time. One of the things I would suggest is when your pet is not in distress and you're not directly making the decision, try to do some research about the costs and who's actually doing in-home euthanasias, if that's going to be one of your options. Sometimes, and especially right now during the days of COVID, things aren't exactly running the way they were before, and so the vets that I used in the past to come to my home were not available. If you have an older dog or a dog that has a condition, it's always good just to know your options, know which vets are doing the services that you're looking for, finding out what the costs are so that you can be prepared for that. If you're planning on burying your dog, then you'll need to know the rules and regulations and the laws around that in your area. Just over a week ago, I lost my dog Asha, and I did have the option to bury her. I do live in a rural area, and I am allowed to bury animals on my property, and I have done that in the past. You have to decide whether you're emotionally prepared to do what you'll need to do with the dog's body if you're not cremating. That's really important to kind of know who you can count on for those situations. That's something that you might want to talk to your friends or family about just in preparation so that you don't feel as alone at the time. Another thing that's really important is just to have a really good rapport with your vet and to ask any questions that come up. I have never met a vet that wasn't happy to answer any of the questions I had about euthanasia and what to expect or what the procedure involved. I think our job as our pet's caregiver is to do as much as we can to support the process and to help our pets to transition with peace and with calm. And that doesn't mean you're not going to cry. It's a very emotional time. Everyone's going to feel differently. But working with your vet as a team is going to help you, it's going to help your vet, and it's also going to help your pet. One of the things that you may want to think about ahead of time is there a special blanket or quilt that you want to go with your pet? Now, some vets will take the blanket with them, some vets will have blankets of their own, and every situation is going to be a little bit different. But if there's something that you want your pet wrapped in, it's something you can think about. Another thing to know is that pets will sometimes release fluid, and so having a pee pad underneath your pet can just be a practical measure. Some vets will explain each step of what they're doing, and others will basically go ahead and do it. And so if you want some warning about each step or you just want some explanation, just ask your vet to let you know what's going on. The vets that I've worked with have all sedated my dogs before using the euthanasia drug. There was a time that was not as common of a procedure, so it doesn't hurt to ask your vet, will they sedate the dog before euthanizing? For me, that's really important because I want my dog to be as calm as possible. And the injection of a sedation drug will basically put your dog into a sleep state. The sedation drug can work differently depending on each dog. So with some dogs, it's taken maybe 5 minutes. There are cases where it's maybe up to 15 minutes. And sometimes they will have to do another injection. Just depends on the dog and depends on their particular state. In my case with Asha, while the vet was administering the sedation, I was feeding her chicken and she was happy and content, and she peacefully drifted to sleep within probably less than 5 minutes. The drug that was used in Asha's case, and probably many euthanasia cases, is an overdose of barbiturate. In my experience, the dog usually just basically stops breathing. My very first dog, Merlin, in the moment that he was given the euthanasia drug, he actually lifted his head towards me, and that was the dog he was. He was with me right to the very end. But with all my other dogs, they've been asleep and they've been just absolutely peaceful, and they just basically stop breathing. Another thing to be aware of is that depending on your pet size and depending on the veterinarian, you may be asked to assist in moving your pet's body into their vehicle for transport. Again, if any of those details concern you or are worrisome to you, it's always a good idea just to talk to your vet ahead of time and just discuss the details of how things will unfold. Another thing I want to talk about is if you've made an appointment for euthanasia, but it's not right away, it's maybe a day or two, honor those moments. While your dog is alive, your dog is still alive. Do the things for you and for your dog that you can honor as a memory. You can give your dog their favorite foods. You can do video of your dog. You can take pictures of your dog. Give your dog the attention that they want. If they're in a lot of pain, then obviously let them rest and don't push them too hard. Asha didn't really feel all that cuddly towards the end, but she really enjoyed her food and she was still even offering a few tricks. Of course, I didn't push anything from her at all, but I enjoyed our time together for those last moments, and I honored those moments. I could have spent them crying and I could have really been in pieces over it, but I just chose to make those moments count for what they were, which were the last moments in her life. Asha ate a lot of foods that she absolutely loved that she didn't get very much. And the one kind of problem with that is that they can end up with pretty loose stools. It's not the time that you want to be giving them rice and chicken broth because they have an upset tummy. What I did with Asha is I gave her some extra probiotics, and I use a brand actually for myself, but I've found it's worked well for my dogs also. And this is called HMF Forte. It really helped her actually, and I was able just to give her those little extra treats. And I gave her 2 tablets of probiotics. So again, these are things you can ask your vet. I'm not a vet, I'm just telling you my experience and what I did, but it actually helped Asha quite a bit. Another thing that was just a really special experience for Asha was a friend of mine who does something called Bowen therapy. She had worked on Asha in the past, and basically, Asha had a lot of weakness in her back and some stiffness. And when my friend came to do this therapy on Asha, it really cheered her up and she always felt good afterwards. And so we had booked an appointment 2 days before the euthanasia, before I actually knew I was euthanizing. And so the friend came anyway. And what was so wonderful about it was that she worked on Asha, and of course it always made Asha feel better, and it did in this case as well. But the bonus was that Asha had always been a really shy dog, and having someone come and do a really nice therapy for her in a really positive, calm, and serene situation set up a really great scenario for when the vet came, because it was essentially the same setup. Asha was prepared for a nice session with a nice lady, and that's exactly what happened. And Asha was absolutely stress-free and she was so peaceful, and that was just a huge relief for me Asha had been such a scared dog. At one time, Asha used to be so scared that if a stranger came in the house, she would go under my mattress, and I had boxes under the mattress. So she would be pushing the mattress off of the bed to hide from a stranger. And so to see that her transition went as peacefully as it did, it was just absolutely heartwarming to me, and I'm just so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the professionalism of the vet. I'm grateful for the bone therapy, and I'm just grateful for Ashla's life and that we have options to euthanize. You know, in humans, we don't always have those same options, and it's the one gift we can give our pet is the gift of a peaceful death. It's hard, it's crushing to lose our pet. I know, it's absolutely heart-wrenching. They affect our lives in such significant ways. They are such amazing creatures that just influence our lives and add to our lives. So every time you feel grief or you feel sadness, it's a reminder of how much love and how much joy that pet gave you. And so that's something to honor. You know, I think we really need to honor our grief and not to shove it down and not to feel bad about it. We grieve our animals because we love our animals and they impact our lives. We impact their lives, but they impact our lives as well. And I'm just so glad for every being that I've had in my life and the impact they've had on me. I've learned so much through my pets. Our pets are basically on loan to us for a decade and a half if we're lucky, and then we have to let them go. But I wouldn't for the world give up all the joy and the adventures and the fun that I've had with my pet and the healing for the grief and the sadness at the end of their lives. Our pets help to make our hearts grow bigger. And whatever choices you make for your dog at the end, just be assured that if you're thinking about your dog's well-being, then you're probably going to make the right decisions. And just know that euthanasia truly is a gift. As much as it was very difficult to make the choice for Asha, I also know that it was a true gift from the heart to give her the peaceful transition that she deserved. Even though it basically rips your heart out to let them go at the end, I would do the whole thing all over again. The grief of losing a pet is definitely worth it to me for the joy of having a pet. And even though it's hard to physically lose them, they will always be with you in your heart.